Hey everyone, and welcome back. We've all been there. You're deep in the zone making some of your best work, and suddenly Krita crashes. If you're using auto recover, that might save the day, but what happens when it fails to capture your most recent strokes? Or what if autosave overwrote some detail you actually want back? Today I'm going to show you a secret weapon for these situations, the Recorder Docker. I'll demonstrate how I used a recording to restore lost details in this landscape painting when autosave let me down. The key to this recovery method is having the Recorder Docker active before the disaster strikes. If you're not familiar with how to record in Krita, I have a video you can watch. In this piece, I was using my custom palette knife brushes to add choppy water and spray at the base of these cliffs. I had just finished some wave details when Krita unexpectedly quit. When I reopened the file, the auto recovery worked, but the interval was set to 7 minutes, so those last few minutes of detailing were completely missing. Instead of starting over, I turned to my recorder folder. When Krita records your canvas, it saves a sequence of still frames to a directory on your computer. I'll show you an example of one of my recordings. First, I'll open the Recorder Docker. Next, I'll locate where my frames are stored by clicking on the recordings directory icon. Now I just need to find the frame I want to recover. In this case, it's right before the crash. To import the frame into my composition, I simply dragged and dropped that image file directly onto my recovered Krita canvas. I chose Insert as New Layer. Because the recording captures the canvas, the alignment should be perfect. The exception being if you chose to record at a lower resolution. If you plan to use the recorder for backup, then choose the original resolution of your canvas. Now, I didn't want to replace the entire painting, just the waves. I went to my original water layer and made a selection from its transparency to create a stencil. With the imported recovery layer selected, I added a transparency mask. By using the mask, I concealed everything except for the specific region of water where the lost details were located. If you didn't separate your scene into layers like I did, then you will need to manually paint away the excess. The pasted layer was now perfectly stenciled by the water layer. Because I chose to save the frames as slightly compressed images, there was some noticeable blurriness or compression compared to the original brushstrokes, but the structure and lighting were all there. All I had to do was spend a minute touching up the sharpest details with my palette knife brushes. You can choose not to compress your recording, but I'll come back to that in a second. You might be tempted to run the recorder all the time, but take caution. In Krita 5.3, the recorder received an update called real-time capture. Unlike the old method that only saves snapshots at a specific interval, real-time capture records the process as it happens. That means even sections of each stroke are recorded. This makes for a much more fluid playback of the time-lapse video, which better reflects the speed at which you made the artwork. While real-time mode isn't required for recovering details, it might be useful if you want to also record your process. Having a smoother recording better captures the speed and direction of how you made each stroke. This is better than a time-lapse where strokes appear out of nowhere and don't have a natural flow. Real-time does have some limitations though, which you should be aware of. First, let's go through some of the settings. The thread setting controls how much power your computer dedicates just to capturing your screen. If your computer has to prioritize something else like another application, it might miss some frames in Krita. The number of threads you use determines how smooth of a recording you'll get. Choosing only one thread can leave you with choppy playback, and if you're using it for backup, it could miss some subtle steps. However, using a higher number of threads for real-time capture may negatively impact your brush performance. You'll need to reserve some threads for other computer tasks and Krita itself. I have 12 CPU cores, so I am allotting 4 to recording. But the most important thing to note is that you are saving a series of images when you record. Choosing a high frame rate vastly increases how many images are captured, and saving those images with a low compression makes each file larger. If you are maxing out your settings to record a large canvas, you're going to create a massive folder of images. You'll burn through your entire hard drive space just to capture a few minutes of painting. This in itself can lead Krita to crash. So there's a trade-off you'll have to make. You want large uncompressed images if you want to do what I did in this tutorial and recover detail. And if you want to capture as many strokes as possible, you'll want a high frame rate. But you also don't want to kill your computer. If you're going to heavily rely on the recorder for backup, you'll definitely want to optimize the settings to find a balance between backing up your layers and streamlining Krita's performance. If you're mostly concerned about backing up detail, prioritize image quality by using low or no compression with the original resolution, a good file format such as PNG, and a very low frame rate. This will capture frames less frequently, so it may not capture the most recent strokes if you were painting something rapidly like leaves or hair when the crash happened. However, it should be good enough to back up the bulk of your details. Even at a low frame rate, capturing high-resolution, uncompressed PNGs every second is going to create gigabytes worth of data. Be prepared to burn through anywhere between 10 and 100 gigabytes depending on how long your painting session is. You'll definitely want a large storage drive for this. It will be necessary to delete any unneeded captures between sessions since they will take up so much space. What I would do is manually pick out one or more frames that capture your progress and trash the rest. If you're mostly recording your process as a time-lapse and don't mind touching up details if you need to recover layers, then use a lower resolution with a higher compression and a higher frame rate so the playback is smoother. Unless you might need them for something else, you can delete the frames after exporting your time-lapse as a video file. And of course, if this is all too technical for you, you can disable real-time capture and just let Krita save a frame based on the capture interval you choose. This won't be great for playback as a time-lapse, but it's the most efficient method for backing up detail. In conclusion, the Recorder Docker is for more than just time-lapse videos. It's a safety net for your creativity. If you are someone who is plagued by crashes, then you might consider turning the recorder on. You may even want to set it to record automatically if you're worried about forgetting to start each recording. If you found this tip helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more Krita tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.